Biochemically, we are hunter-gatherers. We just live in cities, and most of our bears don't have fur. Today, if we get away from the bear, from the big thing, we can't find the campfire because we got this pack of chihuahuas at our heels all day long, chronic, unrelenting minor stressors.
Right.
So if we're not running from bears, we're kicking chihuahuas.
Right.
That's my bears and chihuahuas thing. Okay.
Right.
So I think what we get into, to come back and give a visual for what we talked about over here as a weakened but reactive system. To try to make a visual, I have to have an imaginary line. So assume that to be the minimum adrenal response for survival.
Okay.
If that's our minimum, we should be living up here, managing variations of life as they happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we typically think we are. I think between bears and chihuahuas, we're managing those things, but we're losing margin through the years because we never have full recovery time. And then we have major stress events. Finish school, get married, have a child, have a job change, move somewhere, have a grief issue, have an injury, whatever it might be. Things that come along and kick us in the butt. Nothing ever kicks us back up.
Mm-hmm.
That's fingernails up the cliff. Very slow process of recovery. I think we're at risk of crossing that imaginary line below which there is no minor stress. But we are survivors, and so we push to get back to survival, which weakens the system more. So as I exaggerate this, next time I have to push harder, which weakens me more. The weaker the system gets, the more reactive the system becomes because we are survivors. It's doing everything possible to continue to get us back to survival. We can push far enough that no matter how hard we drive, we're not able to fully compensate anymore. Once we're down to that point, we're having trouble getting out of bed in the morning, our energy is really low, maybe lower at certain times of day. In this phase is where we might see increases in heart rate, re-waking at night, anxiety, hot flashes,
Everything I have.
all the types of symptoms you have, right? So as we saw here, very weakened, but highly reactive compared to that. So that's the visual for that process.
Well, you're stressing me.
Well, the counter to this is there's nothing on here that's uncorrectable.
Okay.
Exhale.
Aches and pains, fibromyalgia, morning fatigue. Notice that aches and pains, one of the factors is the estrogen-progesterone relationship, but everything else there, androgens not getting enough effect, adrenals too weak, a low thyroid effect. These are energy and tissue regulation processes.
Right.
From my perspective, fibromyalgia is low thyroid with normal thyroid blood work,
Okay.
leading to impaired mitochondrial issues, how you manage energy inside cells.
Right.
But if we correct the control systems, you should see symptoms go away.
Mm-hmm.
So, are we going to talk about solutions as you go, or wait till all the problems are talked about?
I'll try to talk through the process and then build back
Okay.
out. Right.
I just want to understand the process.
Sugar cravings, the flag is that weakened adrenal issue. One thing I haven't drawn, but I will quickly. I've mentioned glycemic stress.
Yeah.
If this is the upper and lower limit of blood sugar that we need just to walk around,
Mm-hmm.
we all have variations in blood sugar through the day. Anytime glucose is rising, or the brain thinks glucose is rising, we release insulin.
Okay.
Insulin has three major jobs. One is to get glucose into the cell for energy now. One is to convert excess glucose into storage. Insulin is the only storage hormone, so all weight gain is insulin. And the third thing is to restore glycogen in muscle after workout. So everything that insulin does makes blood sugar drop. And as blood sugar drops, that reptilian brain screams, "Feed me, I'm going to die." And we release cortisol to raise it back up. 24 hours a day, that is a balancing opposition. If we have insulin without cortisol, we're in a coma. That's survival. So if life is wonderful, but we're overdriving insulin, we're burdening the system. And of course, everything that drives cortisol, as we talked about over here, steals progesterone, and that cascade begins. And when progesterone, things I didn't say over here, when estrogen is higher than progesterone, relatively speaking, that ratio is off. That ratio being off is a marker for things that would affect thyroid binding protein would lower the amount of thyroid hormone produced available to the cell. As we overdrive cortisol and or insulin, both of those rising block thyroid receptors, preventing the activity of thyroid hormone at the cell. As we weaken adrenals, adrenals in general regulate the conversion of thyroid hormone T4 to T3 that the body actually uses, so that downregulates activity of thyroid hormone cells. So it's very common to see low thyroid effects. In your case, about almost 40% of your symptoms, even if thyroid hormone production is wonderful. But this battle apparently is very significant.
Can I just, okay, tell me what significant, I just wanna, okay, when insulin goes up, it does three things. Insulin rises,
When glucose rises, we release insulin.
okay,
Or when the body thinks glucose is rising, we release insulin.
to get sugar into the cell.
So sugar into the cell is the first activity. Second one is storage of excess. This is how we get weight gain. Insulin converts excess glucose into triglycerides in order to store as fat. And the third is the restoration of glycogen in muscle. This is the storage of glucose for later in muscle.
And so you,
Sorry, the first was getting sugar into cell, second is storage of excess,
Right, and the third is restoring glycogen in muscle.
restoring.
Like for after workout when it's depleted. And so when you said where it thinks it's rising, why do you keep saying that? Like diet
Because if
soda
you have, yeah, diet
that
soda.
makes the body think that it's
So-
getting glucose?
Or
Artificial
stevia or
sweeteners
anything.
or stevia or anything that tastes sweet. I believe our brains are learning devices. I think an infant's brain says blood sugar went up, tasted sweet, blood sugar went up, I release insulin. Pretty soon it's taste sweet, release insulin in anticipation. Don't want to wait for that. It's a survival. You've got to get be efficient.
But what about these tests that say it doesn't raise your blood
Let's say it doesn't
sugar?
raise your blood sugar. Blood sugar is a symptom.
Oh, it doesn't raise your blood sugar, but it raises your insulin.
Right.
And
Ins-
then your insulin,
blood
since
sugar
it's
is-
not getting used, it's
No.
being released but not getting used.
Well, it's still working. It still makes blood sugar drop. So you have to
even
have
though
more
you
cortisol to bring it
did-
back up. So if you have an artificial sweetener,
stresses your
Oh.
cortisol
Right.
by drinking
it puts
that.
more burden on adrenals, right?
So if no sugar,
Right. Now, even stevia does that. Now, the commercial artificial sweeteners are worse because commercial artificial sweeteners and flavor enhancers, the MSG class, about 1,000 other chemicals that all it has to say on the label is natural flavors. Those two classes work at glutamate receptors in the brain, and so they're trying to improve taste intensity. That's the currency of competition in the food industry. But not only do they change taste intensity, glutamate is the neurotransmitter that screams it's bear. So when we activate glutamate, we increase cortisol and almost triple insulin release. So we drive that process by more than one mechanism without having any effect on blood sugar. But the focus of the system is blood sugar is the evil thing. You got to watch that. Not looking at the process, but looking at the marker.
And she has drink.
oh yeah, I've been, I've been,
Gallons.
yeah.
Gallons of diet sodas.
You've been
And
stressing
stevia
your adrenal
drinks. Yeah, yeah.
for years.
Yeah, ever since I did that Dr. Bernstein diet, and they said, no sugar, but have as much diet soda as you want.
It's an extremely misguided recommendation, but we still see it.
Yeah,
Because it's just not a functional way to think about how the body works.
right.
So most people with insulin resistance never have diabetes, but the only thing the only thing they look at for insulin is diabetes in today's medical model.
They don't look at their increase of cortisol or.
So insulin resistance is an adaptive mechanism by which humans survive the American diet.